Welcome back. This video is going to be a little bit controversial. Should truck drivers go on strike? I'm going to talk about that in this video, along with a lot of other things. I'm going to talk about freight rates, going to talk about spot market, mega carriers, owner-operators. Going to cover it all, and it's all extremely important. If you know a truck driver, or if you are a truck driver, please share this video out so that way other truck drivers can take, what I'm talking about and think about it, process it for themselves, and hopefully come to a logical decision. Okay, so the big thing right now is let's go on strike, let's go on strike. Now, that being said, I'm not going on strike. I did not have, the company that I'm leased on to did not get a huge lump sum of money from the government and just shut the doors and kick me out of the area or the oil field that I was working in. So I cannot speak from that perspective, okay? Only a guy that was working out in the oil fields and had that happen to him or her can talk about that, okay? They have a legitimate cause to go on strike about. All right, that is something that you would go on strike about. Or if you're doing a job that's getting paid hourly and, let's say you've been making $12 an hour for the past 20 years and you've seen, maybe 2 or 3 pay increases, but inflation, yada, 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 you're not making enough money to how much you were making 20 years ago to what you're making now. That's a legitimate reason to go on strike, and that is what strikes were used for. Going on strike right now would be the death of free market, and I'm gonna tell you why. So please hold your comments until the end of the video, and then by all means, let me know how you feel about it, what you think. If you completely disagree with me, that's cool. We live in America, and hey, we're all entitled to our opinions. That's exactly what this video is about. It is about one man's opinion, okay? I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I've been a truck driver for about 8 years now. Been an owner-operator for approaching 2.5. So I don't know everything, all right? But I do understand patterns. I do research. I do learn my craft, okay? That's something that I urge everybody to do. You need to understand that trucking is cyclical, okay? And what that means is, you've probably all heard this euphemism, what goes up must come down, okay? And the trucking industry is no different, all right? When rates are outrageous, okay? And I mean, we were getting back in 2018 some insane numbers. You didn't see all truck drivers out there striking. Oh, we're making too much. This is ridiculous. It's just, you gotta understand, you have to take the good with the bad. All right? If everybody was out here making hundreds of thousands of dollars, then there would be more truck drivers than freight, and we wouldn't be making as much because trucking relies on supply and demand, all right? Right now, the supply is extremely low, so that means the demand is extremely low. And when those two things meet, freight rates go down, okay? Now, are they going down? Did they drop 50%? Well, maybe in some markets, it's certainly possible. And is it possible that this happened from week to week? Yes. Yes, it is possible, okay? And the reason it's possible is because maybe, like for instance, the largest pork processing plant just shut its doors today. Today is April 28th, okay? Or it happened recently. And if that happens, I mean, you're talking about wiping out a ton of loads, hundreds of loads, okay? When an entire plant shuts down, think about what all that affects. It's not just the pork. It's the pork. It's the farmers that raise the pigs. It's the farmers that raise the feed. It's the farmers or whoever, fertilizer, what else? The packaging. There's so many things that are involved that when one area of commerce or industry or retail shuts down, it's a ripple effect, a butterfly effect, and it goes out in waves, and it affects multiple people. So if you have an area that, boom, you know, all of a sudden the cases of what we're dealing with right now, I'm not even going to say it, but if those cases happen to sprout up in that area, and then that whole area is affected, then that, you know, that entire industry is going to be affected across the board. Okay, does that mean that trucking is going to shut down? No. Okay, trucking is not going to shut down, but in that area, freight rates are going to drop significantly because you're going to have way more trucks than you are freight. Supply, demand. Should be the other way. But you have to understand that what we're dealing with right now is it's unprecedented. Now, are there companies out there that are taking advantage? Yes, absolutely. Okay, think about it this way. If a broker like TQL, we all know that TQL is they've got some cheap rates posted on the load board. It's just a fact. Okay, now I've hauled plenty of TQL loads, but I didn't haul them for cheap rates, because guess what happens? The longer that load sits there, the more they gotta pay. And you need to take ownership of what's really going on here. You know, did that contract that they're in, where they're contracted out at $225 a mile for 100 loads per week, did that drop? No, they're still under contract. But they understand that truck drivers are panicking a little bit. There's more of us sitting around now. There's less freight to go around. So yes, they can charge less. Okay, should they be charging $1 a mile? No, that's a joke. Okay, should they be anything less than $1.50 a mile? No, that's a joke. Okay, but don't get mad at TQL or other brokers like that. I'm just using TQL as an example. Don't mean anything by it, but don't get mad at them, because their ultimate job, they have two jobs, okay? Number one is to make as much money as possible. Okay? That's part of their job. But ultimately their main goal is to move freight. And if they're profitable on a load, it doesn't matter what the profit margin is. Well, I'm sure there's probably a threshold, but it's a lot slimmer than what everybody leads on to be. Then they still have to move that load. Okay, if they can move a load at $1.50 a mile when they're getting paid $3 a mile, why wouldn't they? Okay, we need to stop laying blame on these brokers, these agents, these shippers out there, because it's not them that's doing it. It's the truck drivers. Okay, it's the truck driver that says yes to the cheap freight. Stop. That's what we need to eradicate. We need to eradicate the cheap hauling of freight, because ultimately that's not a profitable business. Okay, it's not. You can go out and you can buy the cheapest truck in the world, buy the cheapest trailer, pay the cheapest wages, but in the end, you're gonna get cheap shipping. Okay, you get exactly what it is that you pay for. Know your worth. You have to know your worth. Here's another thing. You have to understand what your operating cost is. You must know this, and you have to know that there are fixed expenses and there are variable expenses. That one of the variable expenses is fuel. Okay, right now, fuel is extremely cheap, and I'm talking crazy cheap. With my crazy discount at Landstar, I paid $1.08 per gallon yesterday, and that does not include the IFTA tax. That is only the discount. All right, so my operating cost, I'm down roughly 30 to 35 cents per mile. Okay, if I want to, and what that means is, I'm just gonna throw a number out there. This is not my actual number, but before, where I needed to make $1.50 a mile to stay profitable and run a profitable, successful business, well, now I can haul for $1.15 to $1.20. Okay, you have to understand what your costs are from week to week, because they change. They actually change daily, but that's a little extreme. So understanding your cost of operation is going to help you make an educated decision. Now, should I be out there running $1.15 to $1.20 freight? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to do that to the market. When I take a load for cheap, I affect everybody. Okay, and we need to band together as truck drivers. Don't go on strike. Strike is not going to work, and I'm going to tell you why. Back when truck drivers were looked at as basically workhorses for these carriers, it was extremely difficult to get your own authority back in the day. In fact, they didn't want you to. They wanted you to be a company driver basically and work for someone else, because that person could basically run you like a workhorse and tell you need to go here. And then as soon as you get there, all right, got to grab that load and get right back. But I haven't slept. Don't care. You don't want it? You're fired. I can get somebody else out there to get it. And they could. Okay? So back then, the truck drivers were being pushed and pushed and pushed. So truck drivers, there were strikes back then. If you don't think there were, you're mistaken, because there were strikes back then, there were protests, there were all kinds of things for truck drivers, and truck drivers pushed the government to regulate the hours of service. Starting to sound familiar? Okay. Now, were truck drivers begging to, I only want to work 70 hours a week? No. But the government needed to step in, and they had to do their due diligence, and they had to see, well, what can a human being work and operate at close to 100% efficiency every single week, all the time. And they came up with all of these rules and regulations. And as you and I both know, some of them are good, but some of them are crap. All right? But they're doing the best that they can. So basically, when truck drivers they didn't want to regulate the hours of service. They just wanted to be stopped. They wanted to stop being looked at like workhorses. Then the government stepped in and said, okay, here you go. Here's an ELD. And that took care of all of that. And we all know how well that turned out. So don't think that a strike is the way to go. Do not think that you want the government stepping in and regulating everything. Do not think that you want them to see how big of a piece of the pie that they're missing. I promise you, they probably already know. They just haven't stepped in because their hand hasn't been forced yet. All right? The trucking economy is free market. And so ultimately, the ultimate goal is to get your own authority, but it's not to get out there and run the spot market. Okay, can you make a living running the spot market? Yes. When times are good, times are really good on the spot market. I did a video on that. I'll post that up there, and that'll be the difference between, I think it's Landstar and the spot market, but it's the difference between direct shippers and the spot market. All right, you don't want the government taking that away from us. Okay, there's plenty of people out here that have busted their you-know-whats to build a trucking company, and it may be a small one, it doesn't matter. But, they charge their $3 to $4 a mile. And you know what? Their customers, their shippers are happy to pay it. Okay, it just takes a lot of money in order to get into that position. But if you regulate the trucking, all of that's going to go away. You can't reach that end goal. You can't reach the ultimate American dream of trucking. If you think the American dream of trucking is running the spot market with your own authority, you're sadly mistaken. That's not even remotely close to what you want to do. The spot market should only be used as a filler. It's just a filler to get you a backhaul. Okay? You can run out and back, out and back, out and back. And that's it. That's it. That's all the spot market should be used for, but we use it differently than what it used to be used for. Don't take away the free market because you're upset that the spot market is in the tank right now. And, understand that everything's in the tank right now. Demand is low. Supply is low. So rates are low. But know your numbers, and you can understand that you can haul for a little bit cheaper than what you have been hauling before. You know, of course it's great to run that $2, $3, $4 a mile. You know, whatever it is that you operate on. Of course it's great to do that. But don't shut down right now when the United States needs us. They need us. Right now, if you go into the grocery stores, you're going to see a bunch of empty shelves. And it's not because, you know, it's not because the supply isn't there directly. It's because the supply isn't there because cities are shut down, plants are shut down, processing shut down. It has nothing to do with us. Stop pointing the finger at brokers and agents and shippers and everybody else, and take ownership of what's going on. If you want to change the spot market, if you want to change these rates, stop hauling for bullshit numbers. That's it. That's on you. That's it. It's on whoever's hauling that. So in order to get rid of that, we need to band truck drivers together. Has nothing to do with going on strike, which is, you're going to cripple us if you do that. If you go on strike, you're going to cripple us. I think I mentioned the email that I got about a strike that's happening on May 1st in Illinois. I'm not going to say the city because I don't want it to go that way. Sorry. You know, I'm out here. I'm not hitting home runs for loads, but I've hauled for $2.50 a mile to the truck since all this has started in the past couple of weeks. Okay, the load that I just delivered wasn't the greatest, but guess what? Because I'm operating at 30 to 35 cents less than what I should be operating at normally, I was easily profitable. And I mean, no offense, but I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Because everybody that's shut down, that's at home, you haven't seen the end of this. This is going to get worse. It is going to take a long time before we recover from this. It is going to be a long, hard grind. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go out of business. It's just the way that it is. I'm sorry to say it. It sucks. I don't want anybody to go out of business. I don't want anybody's family to want for food. I don't want that at all. But it's going to happen. It's been happening in trucking for years and years and years because it's cyclical. It's a circle. It goes around and goes around and goes around. And right now, it's coming around. But the beauty of the free market is if you can survive, okay, this downturn right now, there's a pot of gold waiting on the other side. There's another 2018 waiting on the other side of this. Because, like I said, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of trucks that have gone out of business. And so the demand is going to be way up, but the truck supply is going to be way down. And then all the rates are going to come back. Just like in 2018, you're going to see a bunch of people out buying a bunch of trucks, whatever's hot at the time. If it's a flatbed, if it's a reefer, if it's a drive-in, you're going to see a bunch of those. In 2018, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I park my truck, I pay $100 a month to park my truck. There's about, I don't know, 150 spaces, 100 to 150 spaces where I park. When I first started parking there, I was still with Mercer, and I had a flatbed. There were 5 other flatbeds in that truck parking. Now, there's like 10-ish drive-ins and reefers combined. Everybody else is a platform. And guess what? Now when I go home, half of them are sitting there. I hope they can afford it. I really, really do. And if they're running their business properly, they will be able to. But don't think that, oh, rates are in the tank, screw it, I'm going home. That's not the way, that's not the right mentality to be thinking. If you can afford that, man, that's all for you. Then you've worked for that, and you've earned that, you do that, and you enjoy that, and I hope that I get there someday, just like you. But for the rest of us that have to work, that need to work all the time, I urge you to know your numbers. I urge you to think about what a strike is actually going to do. It's going to force the government's hand. Dear God, you don't want them stepping in. All right? I don't trust politicians, period. I don't delve in politics because it's so corrupt. Do you really want them telling us what we can haul freight for? No, absolutely not. But just stop hauling cheap freight. And if you have the fire in your belly to do something about it, to truly do something about it, start making a lot of noise about getting truck drivers together and getting them on the same page. Or I should say, really should say owner operators. Because if you strike and we shut down as owner operators, can the mega carriers, can they handle what needs to be handled out here? No, they can't. But the mega carriers combined with the military stepping in, can they handle it? Yeah. They can handle what needs to be handled. You see, we're as Americans, we're extremely spoiled. You can drive to the corner, you can get your non-fat, super iced, low calorie, caramel, frou-fa, whatever. You can't get that in other countries. But you can get that on almost every single intersection in America right now because we've gotten fat and we've gotten lazy. That's it. We're fat and lazy. Nobody's hungry anymore. Everybody wants everything handed to them. All right? I urge you to think things through. Think, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and I promise you, shutting down America would be one of the worst things that you could possibly do. So if you feel the need to strike, by all means, you do you, boo. But me, I'm smarter than that. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this? And, think rationally, think reasonably, think of maybe a solution. Okay, I don't think the solution is having the government step in, but what do you have? What do you have to say? What do you think about things? Leave that in the comments down below. Share this out, please. Share this out, and let's get everybody on the same page. That's what I care about. I care about getting all the truck drivers on the same page. All right, let's not do anything that's irrational and that's going to hurt our industry. Let's stay away from that. Think solidly. Think clearly, don't do anything crazy, but definitely want to stay driven.